Hello and welcome, I'm Arumba. Thank you for joining me. Let's play some more Crusader Kings 2, the tutorial series. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about how combat works, and we're also going to talk about morale. So you'll notice this little green bar to the right of the troop tally, and this one is mostly full. This represents the amount of overall average morale of all troops. Every individual army will have its own morale bar inside this army. So if we go to, for instance, say new unit, each one of these armies is going to have its own separate tally for its morale. Those all get added together to create the this overall composite average morale score. Your average morale will recover at a fixed rate per week that's modified by leader traits and can be, I believe, influenced as well by martial scores, average martial scores. Mercenaries, as we mentioned at the very end of the last video, always start with 0 morale, so be very cautious about raising mercenaries. They will always spawn at your capital, or if your capital is completely inaccessible due to it being occupied by another country, it will spawn in an adjacent province. And if there are none, then, well, it gets a little bit complicated from there. One of the most notable examples that I've seen that can really mess things up is if you are Venice, for instance, there are no adjacent provinces, it's just a bad idea to try to raise mercenaries if your capital is occupied. But that's kind of a fringe case. So what's going to happen is when we combine these two armies together, again, since we're dealing with average morale, these 1,500 troops with no morale combined with 736 who have a decent bit of morale will average together and will actually have maybe 30 to 40% morale. Now, morale is very important in EU for CK2, Victoria 2. It's important in every Paradox game. In Crusader Kings 2, 25% is the magical morale number where armies will retreat from battle. They do actually, unlike most other games that Paradox makes, gain morale during combat. And so a character who has exceptionally high morale bonuses, like say this guy, morale defense, might actually be able to protect the morale of his army strong enough that the morale can increase during combat. At the very least, go down slower than the other person, and you can actually win the flank, even with an inferior force, which again, we talked about last video. You don't want to go into combat with an inferior force, but in some circumstances it might happen. But morale can keep your army fighting longer. So let's just combine our armies and go beat the snot out of this guy and win our war. What we want to do is, you can see here that he has just raised up a vassal, actually. And that has no morale. That actually might even be a retinue, is it? 1 out of 1 light infantry. No. It's just one dude. He's raised one dude. Now, along the topic of morale also, it's worth mentioning that armies that you raise directly from your own personal holdings will start with 100% morale. Armies that come from your vassals are just like mercenaries. They'll spawn with no morale. So, early on, if you're playing as the Irish or even the English or anybody over here, you might see some raiding parties, some pagan Norse raiders, and they'll land on your territory and then cause some damage to the economy of your provinces. Be very cautious about raising up vassals' levies because they'll spawn with no morale, and you need to have at least 25% morale to engage in combat without immediately fleeing. So, we might actually have a chance to talk about that further. Or you could always watch one of my Norse campaigns or one of my Fight the Norse campaigns, and you'll see exactly how to handle that. But we're going to merge these two armies here in Tolmund. Apparently it's just Tolmund, it's not pronounced Thomund, even though they, for some stupid reason, put an H in the word. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just annoying how it doesn't matter what you do, you're always going to pronounce words wrong. Everyone has a different way of pronouncing it. So notice the average morale, where our army is at 100%, this army is at 39%. If we combine them, now we are at 69.5%, and we're recovering at an average of 5.6% per week now. And the reason for that is that some of our armies in this mix have full morale. They are not capable of gaining more morale, so only the armies that are not at full morale can gain, which is why it's brought that average regain rate down to 5.6. And this does actually tick every day. Notice it's the 25th, we tick one day, and it goes up. So morale recovers daily. It's not like, say, Europa Universalis 4, where it's on the first day of the month. It's every single day your armies regain morale. So this army is in good fighting shape. Unfortunately, due to our crown law, we are not capable of appointing specific leaders. So right now we've got this Sorkver guy who is decent at leading heavy troops. We've got that guy who doesn't do anything, and this guy who does nothing. However, we might be able to swing it so that we can actually get the leader of the Saxon band to lead the center flank, which is what we want. So we can't remove this guy, but we can swing this army into the center, swing this guy over, and now this guy has taken over as the leader of the army. As for why he is the leader over this guy, us, our character, I can't really say 100% for sure. I think it's tied to the martial score, but just by putting him in the center flank, he is going to now lead the center for us, which is the main reason that we hired this particular mercenary company, was for his combat skill. So next we're going to want to go and just go siege the capital. Now, unlike EU4, and I'm drawing heavy comparisons to other Paradox titles because I have a feeling that if you don't know how to play CK2, it's probably because you follow the channel due to the Victoria 2 content or the EU4 content, and you're trying to break into this title, and so I'm just making these comparisons in case that is where you've come from. So unlike EU4, there is no like reasons for peace type score. The AI basically has like two settings. It either has screw you, we're never going to give up no matter what, and oh crap, I'm dead, I give up. There's no in between. And generally speaking, you're not going to have to always push to 100%, but usually you're going to have to get to about 70 to 80% war score. Also, unlike, say, EU4, where you can declare war, and then, or actually say like Victoria 2, where you can add war goals as the war's going on, or in EU4, where you can declare over one county and then actually take like all of them or something. In this game, whatever the contested reason for your war is, that is it. There is no, there's nothing else. You can't say, well, I want more than what I started off with. And that's one of the reasons why the piece is so black and white. So without further ado, I know we've done the same thing I always do. It's been 7 or 8 minutes. We haven't played yet. So it looks like we're crossing a river. Let's check and see. We have a river that flows between Thomond and nothing between Kildare. So even though we're walking right over a river, like the general rule of thumb in EU4 is that if your army path crosses water, it's probably a river crossing. But in this game, no. Doesn't matter, you just check the indicator. Now, unlike, say, Victoria 2, where each unit type has different movement speeds, in this game, there's only one value, one trait that can affect your movement speed, which is the trait Organizer, which then gets multiplied by your martial score. Other than that, there's no other way to influence movement speed. And there's no such thing as Shattered Retreat, which is fantastic. So there is no river crossing here. We're just going to move right into Tyrone and smack them something fierce. We'll slow the game down to speed 2 so we can watch the combat. Now the AI is notorious for doing this in every Paradox game. They will try to flee the day before they realize that you're coming. A very easy tactic to use in this game is to take the army, split in half, send half of it toward the province that he's going to, and then he'll give up his... Or he'll actually continue on, but we'll just redirect and go there now. And so now he'll be gone by the 9th, but oh, he's a quick little bastard, isn't he? Well, fine. In that case, we'll just chase him. We could engage him with half the army, but I'd rather keep it all together. And unfortunately, we have our center army has changed leaders again. Now, if it is you can change who is in charge, but any other character under our current law isn't changeable. We're going to do that again just to make sure that he's leading. And perhaps if we come in from Tyrconnell, he won't be able to escape us. Movement speed does... I should have spoken this, or I should have said this more clearly earlier. Your morale does affect movement speed. So if you have very low morale, your army will move slower than if it has high morale. So it's actually like the opposite of EU4, where when you win a battle and then you shatter the army, they run forever away. In this game, once you beat them once, it's called ping-ponging. You just move one province over, one county over, and just kill them again. And then one more county over, kill them again, kill them again. And fortunately, it It means that wars are pretty brief, pretty quick, and bloody. Now here's a great example of a neutral army that is going to participate most likely against us. So notice how the number is 1322. It's adding them all together because that's the total number of troops in that county, but 2 of them are in red, they're enemies. 1 of them is neutral. We are not actually hostile towards Connacht, or however that's pronounced. Now, Connacht is currently defending against King Bagsik of Yeland in the Yeland prepared invasion of England. And so he is fighting on behalf of this guy. Like, they're both in the same war. So these 2 are allies in another war, which is what makes them even really show up in a province like this. This guy is essentially trying to unite his army with this army, thinking that they're going to march off and go fight the Yelander prepared invasion. But we're going to end up having to kill their army too. It's fine though. 2200, as you can probably guess, is bigger than 1300. Notice how, yes, even though that army is neutral, it did participate against us. Now, the left flank started off with very, very few troops, and so it's already gone. Notice how we have no bonus to flanking in this army here, because it's just routed its enemy. This army's still here. This army, on the other hand, has its 30% flanking bonus. Once this army's gone and we enter the melee phase, we'll see 270% for having 3 flanks to 1. Let's see how our buddy here, Captain Wolfgar, is doing. You can see he's using the feint tactic. Next tactic change in 11 days. This guy's using the volley tactic. And then at the bottom it says that generic skirmish tactic, volley tactic, shield wall tactic. They're just going to roll a random 100-sided die or 1,000-sided die, however you want to look at it, and then whatever the number comes out to, that's the tactic they're going to choose. So we'll go down to speed 1 and we'll watch the combat. Of course, if no army is actually directly heading you up or engaging you, you cannot experience any losses. And we should be seeing that flanking bonus now that his tactic has changed. Every time the tactic changes, it'll check to update things like that. And you can see combat modifier boost to heavy foot troops because this guy has the trait heavy foot troops. Now, something we should talk about is notice how it says heavy foot troops plus 35, and then slightly indented from there, heavy infantry leader plus 20, martial influence times 1.75. So if you look at him, he has 15 martial score. If you have 10 martial, you're going to have just exactly what the trait is specified at. If you have 20 martial, it's going to double your values, and then every point after that is just a 5% bonus to the positive modifiers. With negative modifiers, again, if you have 10 martial score, you're just going to get whatever the number is. If you have 20, the negative modifier is completely offset, and it will go away. So when we look at this guy's actual modifiers, he gets a 1.75x modifier on positive bonuses, and then he has a times 0.25 modifier on his negative modifiers. Again, if he gets to 20, he would actually have no penalty to mounted troops. And actually, you know what? Come to think of it, if he on the negative modifiers, every point reduces the penalty by 5%. That's right. So if he's at 10, then he'd have half of the negatives. Long story short, the more martial score you have, the better your character will do with his traits. So we will wait a couple more days here, and hopefully we'll actually get to see the melee phase. We will. So there's a significant army here in the center. And there it is. Bam, we're in the melee phase. So we've got 270% flanking bonuses here. This guy has a damage bonus of 570% because he's got a bonus against the charge tactic. So what that is, he's using the force back tactic, which has just an extra benefit against the tactic that this guy's using. There's not much that you can really... Again, you can't influence it, but it's interesting. It's kind of interesting. They're getting just killed because we have more than they are. And apparently we've become craven. Not only we're wounded, we've become craven. Another negative effect that can happen when you are in combat. So that's bad. Fortunately, we're not leading troops anymore directly. Unfortunately, we are in the actual army. And we've experienced a victory. This time we actually killed enough troops to get some military technology points. A little bit more prestige. Notice how, because we didn't lead the actual armies directly, we didn't get much experience, or sorry, much prestige. We got 0.7. Is nothing. We lost 116 men. We killed 1,100, and we're good to go. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get any war score for that because we technically engaged the neutral army. Kind of a weird situation there, but not really sure how to explain what's different about that. Changing war score, none. Again. Let's just go and siege now. Now keep in mind that every time you loot a holding, you get money. So when you're trying to factor in how much more time you have to maintain your troops, you can try to consider that you're going to loot holdings and use those to support you. Now also notice that we're losing 6.88 gold per month. Now in the last video, we picked this army and we noticed that it had a cost of 8, roughly, per month, 8.46. It's actually costing us less because this army is reinforcing. So basically, the smaller the mercenary company is, relative to its maximum strength, it's going to reduce the cost to maintain that army. So when you hire mercenaries, it's actually a pretty good idea to assault whenever you actually have a good ratio, because you're going to be killing mostly mercenaries and then lowering the maintenance cost of those mercenaries and speeding up, or rather decreasing the amount of time you need to have that mercenary company under hire, because you can win the war quicker. So, alright, well, we're going to take a break here. In the next video, we'll probably end this war, and probably use the mercenaries. We're going to chain them into a secondary war. So we'll talk about that again soon. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you in a bit.